Right now, I see you're pretty busy with AEWs. What all do you have going on?
I'm currently living in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a trainee at the Nightmare Factory, and I've been wrestling on the independent scene. I get a lot of appearances on AEW Dark, sometimes a brief appearance on AEW television, and just performing and kind of doing whatever opportunities come around.
Walk me through how you got into this. Obviously, there's a lot of training involved. What did you have to do to kind of get to where you are now?
Yeah, so it's a very kind of crazy roundabout story. So basically, while studying at Missouri State, I did a study abroad over to England. While I was there, made some connections, decided to pursue my education in England for classical acting at the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama. While I was there, Kofi Mania was a thing. And I found that like really, really like inspiring, and it was making me feel in a way that I kind of started to become jaded from theater. And a woman that was working on a show of mine was like, "Hey, if you want to, just get away from acting for a while, I do lights and sound for a wrestling show in town." And that was for the London School of Lucha Libre. And I told my acting agents about it, and they were like, "Yeah, we have someone in our books actually who's a wrestler," and that ended up being AEW's Anthony Ogogo. He and I became like best friends almost instantly, and when the pandemic hit, I had to come back to America, and he was coming to America to fulfill his contract, and so we ended up just becoming roommates and kind of starting this wrestling journey together.
That's awesome. That's really cool to hear. So, walk me through your goals. I mean, I know this is a somewhat newer thing for you. I mean, you've been training for a little bit now, but tell me about the next couple months and years. Where do you really hope to see yourself go with this?
So I've come to really, really value and love wrestling as an art form. I think it's very underrated. And through getting my degree in classical acting, which was a large focus on Shakespeare, in my opinion, I've come to see that wrestling is very, very similar in terms of structure to the way that early modern theater was. There was a belief in Shakespeare that with the crowd's interaction, we really could help these characters on their journey and on their way. And it's very similar to wrestling. You feed off of the energy of the crowd to make or break the situation that's happening in the ring. And so I think it's the closest form of interactive theater that we kind of have right now, on a large platform. And the thing is that people are always talking about what's the next mainstream star in wrestling? How do we get another Rock? How do we get another John Cena? That type of thing. And we do things like bring in Brock Lesnar's and Ronda Rousey's. Brock was there before, but bringing people from the sports world to legitimize wrestling as a sport. Anthony Gogo, my roommate, Olympic boxer, comes to legitimize the sport of wrestling from being a sports person. And what I kind of want to do is legitimize wrestling as an art form. Because even though we do have these John Cena's and these Rocks, they're not winning an Oscar anytime soon. They're not winning an Emmy anytime soon. And I think it's because wrestling's been stigmatized. But the thing is, with me coming from the arts, coming from a classical acting school, you're not going to be able to tell me I'm not an artist. You're not going to be able to tell me I'm not an actor. So I want to bring that legitimacy from the opposite side of wrestling spectrum.
Yeah, that's an awesome perspective. A really cool way to think about that. So tell me a little bit about your in-ring move set. Like, would you consider yourself a high flyer, more of a technician? What do you think?
I would say I'm a blend, but pretty closely to high flying and tech as well. My wrestling journey started at the London School of Lucha Libre in Bethnal Green, London. And even that school in of itself is a hybrid, right, of British technical style and lucha libre, aerial offense. Other people from my school, Will Ospreay is a graduate of my school, and so that kind of style is very much what's influenced and formed me and who I am. And I've been able to take the lucha and the British style and then mesh it with the style that comes from the Nightmare Factory, which is very WWE, very, I don't mean sports entertainment in a negative way at all. Very much like the exciting American style, being able to be taught by QT Marshall and by Cody Rhodes of that school is definitely a great blend for me.
Obviously, I'm pretty sure I saw you have a match coming up on AEW Dark. So kind of tell me what that will look like, and do you think this will lead to future matches on AEW?
Yes. So coming up, I have a match against the FTW champion Ricky Starks, which is very cool for me because for a couple of reasons. One major one is my AEW debut was actually against Powerhouse Hobbs, who is also a member of the Team Taz. And I feel very intertwined with Team Taz, with Hook and Ricky and Hobbs. And Ricky is someone, like I said, Kofi Mania was a really big deal for me, and a lot of that was about representation. And Ricky Starks, is someone who, on the simplest of means, is someone who looks like me, which is something I didn't necessarily have growing up. But it's really big deal, and I think coming out of it, the more I just need an opportunity. I just need the right set of eyes to see that I have something special, something different to offer. My in-ring gear is very different to what other people wear, and my style, I think, is very different. So I'm hoping that the more I can just get my face out there, the more that my talents will shine, and hopefully, eventually I pull out a win.
Well, obviously, the way that I heard about you wrestling AEW was because we were connected through Missouri State University. I knew a lot of people, I think, in the theater department, like Zach Russell comes to mind. He's one of my best friends. And so, anyways, tell me about how theater at MSU and that community have kind of helped you out, for where you are now.
Definitely. It's funny you mentioned Zach Russell. Yeah, we lived in the same house, the good old normal house of Missouri State legend. So that house specifically was a house I was very fond of wrestling. Chance Nichols, who's another Missouri State alum, was big into wrestling. Caleb Doyle, very big into wrestling, and they were probably more so than I was at the time. I think really got my eyes back on the product and kind of got me back into it. Kurt, who is the head of the acting department at Missouri State, big emphasis on combat, on stage combat, and always talked about the importance of certification and how big of a deal that was. And eventually, when I traveled to England, I got certified in stage combat, and that physicality was something that I always thought was really interesting, and how we can apply that to theater, and just in general, how we can just add that other dimension of storytelling through physical combat. I think is very, very interesting, and is something that is overlooked quite often. So I think Missouri State, alone in giving me my kind of artistic foundation, also kind of got me inspired to think about how we can use those different unconventional types of storytelling to, reach somebody.
Obviously, you're doing some matches for AEW. They've been in the headlines the last couple of years, really giving WWE a run for their money at a time where it's been a long time since anybody's even stepped close to WWE. What do you think about just the current product of AEW and what they're putting on and kind of the future of the show? It really seems like they're getting up there and kind of, they're doing their own thing, but they're still really just getting a lot of publicity and a lot of eyes on them.
Definitely. One of the funny things is, so I guess if I had a sort of a dad in wrestling, the first would be my trainers, but after that it would be Diamond Dallas Page. And DDP is looked out for me so much and looked out for Agogo so much. And we really owe a lot to him. And, with him being a former WCW champion, as well as being at Cody's school and all the history with Dusty and all that stuff, I've always been someone who's, been into the alternative product. Whether it was WCW or, for me growing up, TNA was my thing. I really love TNA. I really love the X Division. And I think the criticism back then was always that the X Division, this kind of newer style of wrestling should have been up there with your world heavyweight contenders. And what I think AEW has done is it's taken the years of, kind of public opinion about the new direction that things should go in and has used it. That's why we have people like, CM Punk and Bryan Danielson, who were such a big deal in Ring of Honor, where, Ring of Honor probably never got its flowers in the way it deserved to. And, has capitalized on its own sense of history, as well as building new, windows for new stars. There's a lot of people there that I would consider friends. Lee Johnson, Top Flight, Fuego del Sol. Like, there's so many people there who I've forged this genuine connection with, who I can see the future for them. I can see them being this really big, iconic deal in years to come. And I think that's the really good thing about it. And it's not a knock to WWE, because, it's good that they have different identities and they have different styles, but it is something that does rely heavily upon bringing back, people from yesteryear. And not that AEW doesn't do that. I mean, Sting is still wrestling, and that's crazy. Dustin Rhodes, So what I do think is that I think it's willing to take some more risks. And with that, I think comes innovation. And with that becomes, new fans, which I think is important.
Is there anything I haven't asked that you'd like to just talk about or cover?
Let me think. I'm trying to think. I guess one other thing about AEW, this is small, but something that I really love is that there is a showcase of international talent or different stars. Me starting off internationally, that's something that's very close to me. I really love getting to see Japanese wrestlers get their shine. I'm a very big fan of Hikaru Shida and Emi Sakura, and I think the fact that you have them there, you have Pentagon and Ray Phoenix, that you have these different styles from all over the world. I think that's what makes this and all art forms beautiful, is being able to take things from all different cultures and combine kind of one story. I think that's really beautiful. And I think that's an important message that maybe, isn't looked at as closely because it's just wrestling. But yeah, I think that's really important.